Aloha, Jen Boyd here, coming to you from beautiful Honoka'a, Hawaii. Good Monday morning. Good Monday morning to you. So let's get into this topic today. So this morning, I want to talk about abandonment and abandonment issues. And I want to share a little bit with you why I chose this topic to talk about today. So, as many of you may know, when I lost my child in November of last year, I recently shared some information on the internet in regards to how they died. Okay, and they died from drugs. Okay, so it was drugs, and I shared the death certificate. And I was then thoroughly, tarred and feathered, if you will, for doing so. And some of the comments that came my way were things like, you abandoned your child, and you abandoned them 8 years ago. And I thought about that. Well, I did the math, and the 8 years ago that they talk about was when my kid was, 22 years old, maybe 22, 23 years old. And so in my mind, I'm like, first of all, you don't know what you're talking about. There's zero truth to that on my part. But I thought long and hard about it, even knowing that I hadn't abandoned my child. But I did think about the idea that they felt maybe abandoned. They felt abandoned. And I can't speak to that in a way that says, no, I wasn't the cause of that. Clearly, in their mind, they must have felt that way, or these people who were their friends wouldn't have expressed that to me. And that's my opinion. But there must have been a feeling of abandonment. And thinking back and looking now at what that means, right? Feeling abandoned, and how simply that can be created for a person. And it really starts in youth. And I now think to myself, wow, I don't blame her for feeling that way. To some degree, and because it's carried through from childhood. So in her childhood, her father and I parted ways, right? And I didn't purposely abandon her. I wanted her. I loved her very much. But by the same token, she felt abandoned because her mother wasn't present. And I have to accept that she lived her life feeling abandoned and that she wasn't important. Even if it wasn't true, that's her perspective. So what I realized is that feeling of abandonment is all perspective. It's all perspective. And because it's just perspective, it can look different to different people. The people that are perhaps involved in said abandonment, whether you are the abandoner or the abandonee, it looks very different. And I can say that now too, because I had moments in my youth where I felt that towards my mother. But now growing up and being on the other side of things, right? It gives me different perspective. And I can look back now and think, my mother didn't abandon me. She just was doing the best that she could with what she had. The situation was what it was. Doesn't change how I felt at the time, but my perspective now gives me understanding, right? So that I can then realize that that wasn't what it was at all. That was merely just how I felt and how I perceived it. Okay. So are any of you out there? Hop in the comments. I'm using this new platform, and your comments will come up for me. Okay. And I can answer any questions or converse with you in this thread. If you'd like to talk to me about, have you ever experienced that feeling of abandonment? What was that like for you? And have you felt that way, and now later in life, maybe you have a different perspective on things and things are different for you? Has that ever, has anybody experienced that at all? Because I have to say that when you carry those feelings of abandonment, it's really, really detrimental to you in the rest of your life and your journey forward if you hang on to those feelings of abandonment. There are things that you may do to quell those feelings of abandonment. So all I need to say is, and Tori, you know what? Tori, I feel the need to mentor strangers because as I figure things out, I want to be able to share that with other people. And I did accept my son. So I'm not going to get into it with you here. And, it is your right to think that you can think that. Okay. I know differently. Okay. So that's just your perspective. And I know differently. So I'm not going to let that get to me. Okay. And look, the thing is that I'm not perfect. I don't claim to be. Okay. I know that my actions, whether on purpose or not, affect other people. Okay. So any decisions that I made that made my child feel abandoned, of course, I wish I could go back and change that. I can't. All I can do is realize what part I played. And am I saddened that I don't have a chance now to make it right with my kid? Yeah, that hurts. That sucks. Okay. But I reached out plenty of times. Okay. And tried to connect plenty of times. And, you can't make people do something that they don't want to do. So, we become adults, we stay connected with the people that are important to us. And so if a person doesn't stay in contact with you, then maybe they're just not that important. Or they don't think that you're that important, because I desperately wanted a relationship with my child. So, to Tori Powell, that's for you, okay? So, thank you, Jen. Thank you for that. So, again, abandonment. It's a real thing. I get that. I felt it on one end, and apparently someone felt it from me, okay? And again, it's perspective. That was never, ever my intention to have my child feel that way. A lot of the things early on were out of my control. And so my child was just kind of removed from my life. It wasn't my doing. It was just circumstances. But those are things that we have to deal with, and those consequences are what they are. So I encourage you that if you feel abandoned from a person, reach out to them and tell them, I feel this way. I feel like you've abandoned me. Okay? Their feelings are their feelings. It doesn't make it true. Remember that. Them feeling that you abandoned them doesn't make it so. Okay? Because again, remember, it's perspective. It's absolutely perspective. And the thing is that I may feel abandoned by someone, and that was never their intention. So me speaking that to them gives them an opportunity to explain where they're coming from. Okay? So I think that that's reasonable. I think that so many things in our lives could be fixed just by talking to one another, just by expressing how we feel in that moment. Okay? The problem with me and my child was there was no communication. And it wasn't on purpose. Okay? You can't have a conversation with yourself. The other person has to make themselves available, right? It takes two people to have a conversation. But I encourage you that if you are feeling a certain way, that you present it to the person that you feel that way about. And then you don't have to go years without or feeling a certain way. You could get an answer to why you feel the way that you feel, or you could get an explanation as to why they did what they did, whether they realize that it affected you the way that it did. That's what needs to happen, is we need to have conversations. So many things could be fixed with a conversation. Because, as a young adult, feeling the way that I felt with my own mother, as a young adult, I told her, I felt like you abandoned me. I would have lived in a box with you. But that's not what happened. So I felt abandoned. And as a young adult, when my mother explained to me what was happening in her life and her decision, it gave me a different perspective. And I had a clearer understanding of what it's like to be a mother, and what it's like to make decisions that you need to make for yourself, and what that looks like to your children. And I was grateful that I broached the subject with my mother because it made me feel better. And I realized that my mother didn't abandon me. It just felt that way to me. And she had a clear understanding of it too. So I encourage you, don't hold your tongue and sit on your feelings. If you feel a certain way towards a loved one, a parent, a child, engage in conversation. What are they going to do? What's the worst that is going to happen? They confirm it? You already feel that way. Wouldn't it be nice to hear that, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry that you feel that way. That was never my intention. I never want that for you. I love you so much that I would never want for you to feel abandoned. Those are the kinds of things you can hear if you will just talk to people. Okay? I encourage you to talk to people, talk to one another. Okay? Because the feelings that we have may be completely different than the intended feelings. So, anywho, I love to do this. And, I know that there's going to be people out there that try to call me on my stuff or whatever, but I'm going to get out there and I'm going to share my life experiences with others so that maybe the path before you can be a little smoother than it was for me. And why wouldn't we want that for others? Why wouldn't we want our life experiences to serve others so that they don't have to go through that? Okay? So that they don't have to go through those things. So if I can clear a path for you, it doesn't matter that you're a stranger. To me, it doesn't matter that you're a stranger. You are a member of the human race. And if I can clear a path for you so that your life is easier, why wouldn't I? So, thank you so much for joining me today. I was trying to get through this without crying. So, please talk to each other. So many things can be solved with a simple conversation. I will be back here on Saturday at 7 a.m. Hawaii Standard Time. And until then, have an amazing week. Have an amazing Monday because you choose to. Aloha.